ever walked into a place. And it felt like the air just froze, like someone hit pause on your whole life. That's exactly what happened to me that night. I had just closed the biggest deal of my life. $90 million. My company was all over the news. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. And honestly, I felt like I was on top of the world. I walked into this fancy restaurant with Sienna, tall, stunning, wearing a red dress that made everyone turn their heads. She was my date for the night, and also my PR consultant. We were there to celebrate. Champagne, expensive food, the whole thing. Everything felt perfect. Soft piano music, the golden glow of chandeliers, quiet laughter from the other tables, it all screamed success. And then, I saw her. The music faded. The voices around me blurred. All I could hear was the faint sound of a plate clattering somewhere in the background. 10 feet away, moving between the tables, was a waitress in a beige apron, her face pale, her hands trembling just slightly as she carried a steaming plate. But she wasn't just any waitress. She was Claire, my ex-wife. My chest tightened instantly. My mind went completely blank. It had been 3 years since I'd last seen her. 3 years of complete silence. And now, suddenly, here she was like a ghost from a life I'd almost buried. Memories crashed back so fast I could barely breathe. Her voice, her smile, those little notes she used to write me on napkins. All of it came rushing in. I just stood there, staring. And then my eyes dropped, past the apron. That's when I saw it. The curve of her stomach. She was pregnant. And I had no idea if it was mine. Seeing her that night wasn't the real shock. The real shock was remembering how we got here. Claire and I met in college. We were both broke, both stubborn, both carrying dreams that felt way too big for the lives we were living. I had nothing but a half-baked startup idea and an old laptop that barely worked. She was studying literature, always scribbling poems in the margins of her notebooks. She'd hand me little napkins with words on them. Messy handwriting, but somehow, every sentence felt like it was written just for me. She believed in me before anyone else did. When I talked about my business, she didn't laugh or roll her eyes like everyone else. She'd just smile, like she could already see it happening. And slowly it did. The business grew. Investors came in. I started wearing suits instead of hoodies. I was always on the phone, always in meetings. And somewhere in the middle of all that, we stopped talking. The nights got longer. The dinners got quieter. Her poems started collecting dust in drawers. And I didn't even notice when she stopped writing them at all. One day, without a fight, without tears, she just left, packed a suitcase, left her wedding ring on the counter. No note, no goodbye, just silence. I never heard from her again, until that night in the restaurant. And now, I couldn't stop wondering, whose child was she carrying? That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, moving from table to table, pretending I wasn't there, carrying someone else's plates when she should have been the one people were serving. The next evening, I went back. Alone this time. No Sienna. No champagne plans. She noticed me as soon as I walked in. For a second, her eyes paused on mine. Then she went back to wiping down a table. When she finally came over, her voice was polite but cold. "Need a table?" "Yeah," I said. That was it. No smile. No small talk. Just a quick nod before she led me to a seat in the corner. The whole night went on like that. Short answers, no warmth. And still, I didn't leave. I sat there through dinner, through dessert, even after the last customers had gone. When she locked the front door, I was still in that corner, just watching her stack chairs and wipe down counters. I couldn't explain it. I just couldn't walk away. It took me 3 nights to build up the nerve. 3 nights of showing up at that same restaurant. 3 nights of pretending to order food I didn't really eat, just so I could sit there and watch her. She looked more tired every time, moving slower, pausing now and then to rest her hand on her back, taking a deep breath before going on. She never lingered at my table. Just the same polite smile, the same quick, "Is everything okay?" before walking off. But every time she turned away, the words I wanted to say burned in my throat. On the 3rd night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. She came over to refill my glass, and before I could think, it just came out. "Is it mine?" She froze. The water in the pitcher didn't move. And for the first time in years, she looked straight at me. Really looked. Her eyes. God, there was so much in them. Pain, disappointment, memories I'd missed. It felt like she was holding 1,000 things she'd never said. She didn't answer right away. Just stood there, staring at me, until I felt like my heart might break from the silence. And then she nodded. Yes. My chest tightened. I didn't know if I wanted to cry, or beg her to forgive me, or both. You'd think that's when she'd ask for money, right? She didn't. After she told me the baby was mine, I just sat there waiting for the next part. The part where she'd say she needed help. Rent, hospital bills, something. But it never came. Instead, she told me she'd lost her job at the library when budget cuts hit. And rather than call me, rather than even tell me, she took a job here. Double shifts. On her feet for hours. While pregnant, I asked her why she didn't say anything. She didn't even look angry. Just tired. "I didn't expect anything from you anymore," she said. That one sentence cut deeper than anything else. Not the years apart. Not even the fact that she'd been doing all of this alone. Because it meant she'd completely erased me from the picture. And maybe I'd given her every reason to. I left that night feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. That's when I realized I couldn't just walk away again. But I also couldn't storm back in like a hero. I didn't rush in with flowers or money or some dramatic speech. I'd already done enough damage for one lifetime. Instead, I just started showing up. Some nights, I'd wait outside the restaurant until her shift ended, then walk her home. No questions, no pressure, just company. On the nights she looked exhausted, I'd hand her a smoothie before she even asked for anything. Whenever she mentioned a book she loved, I'd track it down and give it to her. Not wrapped, not with a note, just here. No big speeches. No asking for trust. I just kept being there. And little by little, I saw her walls start to lower. Not fall. Not yet. But cracks were forming. If she was going to let me in again, I had to earn it. That meant no shortcuts, no look-at-me gestures. Just real change. The first thing I did was end things with Sienna. She hadn't done anything wrong. But I couldn't pretend to be with someone else while I was trying to rebuild what I destroyed. Then, I started volunteering at a local literacy center. It wasn't random. I did it because of her. Claire had always loved books. She once told me stories were how she made sense of the world. Somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten that. So, I went back to remembering. I kept it small. I didn't flood her with texts or try to be part of every moment. I just stayed consistent, walking her home, making sure she had what she needed on the hard days, listening more than I spoke. She was still cautious. She didn't let me too close too fast, but I could see it, the way her guard lowered just a little more every time. Then one night, the call came, and my heart almost stopped. Her name lit up my phone, and it wasn't good news. It was late. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. It wasn't Claire's voice. It was someone from the restaurant. She collapsed during her shift. The ambulance is on the way. I didn't even grab my coat. I just ran. By the time I reached the hospital, they were wheeling her into a room. She looked pale, weak, but still trying to tell the nurse she was fine. She had never deleted me as her emergency contact. I don't know why. Maybe she forgot, maybe she didn't care. But in that moment it mattered. I stayed by her side, held her hand, told her I wasn't going anywhere. A few hours later, the monitors started beeping faster. The nurse said it was time. And just like that, everything around me blurred. The voices, the lights, the chaos. I only focused on her, squeezing my hand, breathing through the pain. Then, I heard the cry. The tiniest sound. But it felt like it shook my whole life. The nurse placed a small, blinking baby girl into Claire's arms. Amelia. When they placed Amelia in her arms, I knew. This was my second chance. But would she let me take it? We didn't fall back into each other's arms. There was no dramatic, "I've always loved you" moment. Instead, we made a choice. One that wasn't about us at all. We agreed to co-parent. Amelia came first. Her safety, her happiness, her future. It wasn't about rekindling old feelings. It was about proving we could be the kind of parents she could rely on. And for me, that meant starting from zero. Not just rebuilding trust with Claire, but earning it with my daughter too. It wasn't a love story anymore. It was something harder, and maybe more important. I started showing up for everything that mattered. Doctor's appointments, checkups, late-night feedings when she'd let me. I even signed up for birthing classes. And yeah, I was the only guy in the room without a wife sitting next to him. But I didn't care. I wasn't doing it for appearances. I was doing it for Amelia. And for Claire, too. When Amelia was a month old, I rented the apartment next to hers. Spent weeks building a nursery, crib, rocking chair, shelves full of children's books. We weren't a couple, but we became a team. Diaper changes, doctor visits, bedtime stories. All divided, all shared. And somewhere in the middle of bottle warmers and midnight lullabies, we started learning how to be around each other again. No big speeches. No reopening old wounds. Just small moments where the silence didn't feel so heavy anymore. 6 months later, during Amelia's naming ceremony, Claire handed me an envelope. And when I opened it, I froze. It was old, crumpled, and stained, but it felt priceless. Inside the envelope was a napkin. Not just any napkin. It was from our college days. The same cheap cafeteria napkin she'd written on over a decade ago. Her handwriting, a little faded now, but still hers. On it was a short poem she'd written for me back then. Even if the world forgets your name, I'll remember the boy who dreamed. I just stood there, holding it, feeling every memory come back. That was me once, the boy who dreamed. Before the money, before the pressure, before I forgot what actually mattered. And she was the one who had believed in that boy when no one else did. And in that moment, I realized, maybe she never stopped believing in me. Some promises you speak out loud. Others, you keep in your bones. I didn't tell Claire some big speech about how I'd changed. I didn't ask for her trust in one go. I just decided. No disappearing, no excuses, not ever again. I showed up. Every time Amelia needed something, I was there. Every time Claire needed a break, I was there. Not hovering, not forcing my way in. Just steady. Weeks turned into months. She stopped flinching when I offered help. She started letting me be there without second-guessing my reasons. And every time I looked at Amelia, I thought, this is the real work. Not the deals. Not the money. This. But deep down I knew. This wasn't the end of our story. We weren't back together. But we weren't strangers either. Somewhere between sleepless nights, shared responsibilities, and quiet conversations over coffee, we found a rhythm. Not the one we had before. A new one. Life had a strange way of bringing us back together. Not with fireworks, but with small, steady steps. Trust wasn't something we could rush. It would take time, maybe years. But in the meantime, we were a family. Not perfect, not traditional, but ours. I stopped thinking about what we'd lost and started focusing on what we'd built. And maybe, just maybe one day, Amelia will hear the full story of how her parents found their way back. Not to each other, but to the life they both almost lost.